I don't remember him, to be honest. Bro, it had to be very mid at best. Okay, quote tweet. He'll be a top 5 pick. Where your son going? LOL. I got time today. Saw this as another reason to bury Deion Sanders.
The NFL draft was about a week ago, where we saw Caleb Williams get selected #1 overall. Immediately after the NFL draft concluded, there were already pre-draft odds on who was going to be the 2025 #1 overall pick. The highest odds went to none other than Shedeur Sanders, who has been very controversial for many reasons, like doing this during this past season. It has become one of my favorite viral memes. And as controversial Shedeur Sanders is, and as controversial as his father is, he just did something that for some reason tanked his stock even further. The backstory to this entire situation is insane, and it deserves more of a deep dive than what you're seeing on social media. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Over the past few days, we've been dominating on Prize Picks. We've been hitting an NBA, MLB, and we're on a hot streak, making a ton of money while having a lot of fun while doing it. I post my picks for free on Instagram, so you can literally just go copy my picks and just enjoy the game. And right now, Prize Picks will double your deposit match when you use my promo code FlightMike when you sign up. Or you can just click on the link in the description down below and sign up for Prize Picks. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Deion Sanders has never shied away from controversy. Whether it was his attempt at becoming a two-sport athlete during his time as a professional football and baseball player, all the way to his tenure as the Colorado Buffaloes head coach. And his introduction was very fiery, but at the same time, he issued a warning.
You know why? Because I'm coming. I'm coming to restore, to replace, to re-energize some of y'all that are salvageable. I'm not gonna lie, everybody that sit their butt in the seat ain't gonna have a seat when we get back. But I'm coming.
And Max Olson covered all of this in a deep dive on The Athletic. In an article titled "What Happened to Deion Sanders' Colorado Castoffs, Revisiting a Record-Setting Exodus," the article documents multiple athletes as they attempted to play for the Colorado Buffaloes that were essentially cast away once Deion Sanders was hired. The article mentions major athletes such as the son of Josh McCown, another player by the name of Chase Sowell, and most famously, a player by the name of Xavier Smith. Each of them documenting their experience as Deion Sanders essentially turned his back on them. The article opens up by saying Chase Sowell walked into Colorado's football facility on the Sunday after the 2023 spring game and saw more than a dozen teammates lined up against a wall. As each player entered the head coach's office and emerged within minutes enraged or in tears, the second-year wide receiver nervously pondered his fate. "We knew it was going to happen, but we didn't know it was going to happen that soon." He didn't sugarcoat it. He was telling me, "You're coming off of injury. I don't think you'll be one of the guys we need to start this year. We need guys that are going to be ready to play now." Sanders didn't need to use the word cut, but Sowell understood it was time to pack his bags and enter the transfer portal and find a new home. Now, it's very common for first-year head coaches to tell underperforming players of a underperforming program to move on, but the way that Deion Sanders did it was very interesting. Losing 20 players in one day isn't very common, and by the end of spring, 53 scholarship players transferred out of the program. This was unprecedented in college football. There was 87 new players and way more fascination about what Deion Sanders was doing in Colorado. And at the very beginning of the season, it looked like the right move. Colorado started out 3-0. They would lose the next 9 games, and this has people split into two camps. You either believe that Deion Sanders is in the middle of doing something unprecedented and great for the Colorado program, or you feel like this is a social media team that is more focused on generating clicks and attention than winning football games. Here's a list of all 53 players and where they transferred out to, including Josh McCown's son, Owen McCown, who arrived at Colorado in 2022, but things would change for him drastically as Colorado would start out 0-5 and their head coach, Carl Dorrell, would get fired immediately. McCown mentioned how going through this rough season made them all close, but it felt like it was for nothing because Deion Sanders walked in and promised to tear down the Colorado Buffaloes. McCown didn't even bother to compete because, of course, Shedeur Sanders was transferred transferring in, and we all know that Deion was probably going to start his son over Josh McCown's son, so he transferred to UTSA where he could start this fall. Chase Sowell, however, stayed to try to battle out for a spot, but unfortunately he would tear his labrum, and this article describes what the experience was like. Every day felt like a tryout. Sowell thought he had to be perfect to gain approval. He wasn't himself, he was more stressed and more withdrawn. New coaching staffs can be disorienting for players because they don't know whom to trust. Sowell's father grew up in Florida and revered Deion Sanders, and Sowell didn't want to disappoint his family by failing. There was nowhere to hide. Cameras followed the team around constantly for Sanders' Amazon documentary series and his son's well-off media YouTube channel. It felt like a reality show. Sowell said that it felt like it was all the newcomers versus the existing Colorado players. That's the best way I can put it. The new guys were going to be against the players that had already been there. It wasn't a good environment to be in. It wasn't a team environment. On April 23rd, their group text blew up. Players were called into exit meetings with Sanders and told they couldn't play at CU. One described the experience as going to see the Grim Reaper. Sowell's meeting was his first one-on-one conversation with the head coach. And the next morning, apparently the Colorado players were locked out of the football facility. They couldn't grab their things from the locker room. They couldn't grab a meal at the training table. When you're gone, you're gone. Now, of course, as a college sports athlete, Sowell wanted to go wherever he can play as much as possible. So eventually he transferred to ECU. And eventually Sowell would emerge as ECU's #1 wide receiver, leading the team with 47 receptions for 622 yards and a touchdown. And now he's happier than ever. But the viral part of this story is the one that you probably heard of the most. It has to do with a cornerback by the name of Xavier Smith. And this went absolutely viral, and we'll get to how this tanked Shedeur Sanders draft stock in a sec. Xavier Smith's sit down with Sanders was later Sunday. By then, the redshirt freshman safety knew what to expect. His father encouraged him to hope for the best, but he didn't even get a one-on-one. Defensive coordinator Charles Kelly brought Smith and safety Oki Salavier into the office together. He sat on the sofa and he's talking to us, but he's not even looking at us. I'm looking Coach Kelly dead in his eyes. Sanders said he felt like I should hit the portal. He didn't want me to waste a year thinking I could earn a spot. I was actually getting mad, like tears coming to my eyes, because bro, you never even tried to get to know me. And this is the part that went absolutely viral. Now, I'm gonna read the rest of this so we could understand the full context of the situation, but Smith wasn't shocked he was cut, given his injury history. He'd broken his right leg during his senior season in high school, and again in the spring while rehabbing. He played in one game in 2022, but missed the rest of the season with a hamstring injury. Now Smith was finally healthy, and as a young defensive back from Atlanta, was eager to learn from his Hall of Fame head coach. Smith assumed that Sanders would dump older players and embrace the young talent he inherited. During the team meeting, he told himself, he's not talking about me, I'm not leaving. So he pretty much ignored Deion Sanders' advice. And during the spring, Smith felt more like an extra in the background of the reality show. He tried to make the most of second team reps and made plays in the spring game, but he struggled to get Deion Sanders' attention. So as he sat on that couch and listened to Kelly encourage him to leave, there was frustration. He was destroying guys' confidence and belief in themselves. The way he did it, it could have been done with a little more compassion. Now, this does have somewhat of a happy ending. Smith would regain his confidence when he would transfer to Austin, PA, the FCS program in Clarksville, Tennessee, which provided an opportunity to play right away, and Coach Scott Walden won him over with his relentless enthusiasm. Smith caught up quickly to earn a starting role and freshman All-America recognition on a 9-3 team that won its conference. And at the end of the season, when his head coach landed the head job at UTEP, Smith re-entered the transfer portal and followed him to El Paso. And this is why this went absolutely viral, because a short snippet of this article was clipped out in order to draw attention. Because like these articles tend to do, a graphic was made with probably the biggest highlight of this article that kind of took some of these quotes out of context, where Xavier Smith said, I was actually getting mad, like tears coming to my eyes, because bro, you never even tried to get to know me. He was destroying guys' confidence and belief in themselves. The way he did it, it could have been done with a little more compassion. Now, you might be thinking, Mike, how does this affect Shedeur Sanders? Well, this article at the time that we recorded this video got 8.8 million views, and then Shedeur Sanders quote tweeted this article and said, I don't even remember him TBH, bro had to be very mid at best, and this got 16.5 million views. So you can understand why some people don't like Colorado very much, because here's a guy that clearly has had a very tough career. I mean, injured in high school, tries to get a chance with Colorado. His head coach, which is someone that he looked up to, didn't even look him in the eye and told him he had to enter the transfer portal. Life is tough and being a football player is tough, and I'm assuming this guy was hoping that there would be more compassion and empathy. I can also understand Deion Sanders feeling so desensitized to cutting this many players, because it's part of the realities of a head coach. coach. You came into a program, you don't really know these players, you haven't formed a connection or a bond with these players, so I guess he couldn't even look them in the eye and say,
hey, we're moving on from you.
Now, did you think Deion Sanders was gonna stay quiet about this situation? Most definitely not. The entire Sanders family declared war as a result of this report. And I don't know if they're brilliant for doing this or if it's a bad move, because on one hand, by responding to this, you're drawing more attention to the situation. At the same time, I think each and every college football team is gonna be juiced up to try to take down a team that only won 4 games last year. So Deion Sanders' first tweet about this situation was, folks don't hate you because they don't really know you. They admire you in a negative way. They realize they can't beat you, think like you, talk like you, or walk in your shoes. That bothers them. Always smile when you see them because that makes them admire you so much more in that negative way. And the craziest part is someone with like 200 followers tweets at Deion saying, tell your son to stop act like he's the coldest out here, then put up a 4-8 season. Deion would quote tweet this saying, he'll be a top 5 pick. Where's your son going? LOL, LOL, I got time today, LOL. And I think the craziest tweet of all was when he took a screenshot of the kid's stats who just asked for more compassion and empathy from Coach Prime and then tweeted Lord Jesus, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. Because at this point, you're just trash talking a kid that wanted to play for you and was just disappointed that he didn't get the opportunity. Look guys, I absolutely love Deion Sanders. I love his swagger. I love the attention he brought to Colorado. To be honest, I wouldn't be making content on Colorado if it wasn't for the Sanders family. But I have to admit, beefing with kids that were born in the 2000s is absolutely insane. I mean, I understand making the decision that you had to make. If you thought the player sucked, then you thought he sucked. And if you had to move on from him to improve Colorado, then you had to do that. But you don't have to trash talk the kid. And someone just called it out like it was, saying this is one thin-skinned family. And Deion Sanders Jr. kind of proved the point even further when he said, you're so bitch-made, dog, it don't even make sense. You wrote multiple articles talking down on the family, but when we finally respond, we're thin-skinned. At the end of the day, it really depends on what the goal here was, the Sanders family. If they wanted to trend on social media and try to draw more attention to themselves, whether it's negative or positive, they succeeded at that. I personally think it's crazy for a Coach Prime to even be talking back on a former player that got no playing time, that had to transfer to an FCS school. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that Shedeur Sanders isn't a good QB. I think he has an opportunity to potentially go top 5 and potentially become the #1 overall pick. And the craziest part about this is the moment this happened, Shedeur went from +100 to be selected #1 overall to +300 and is currently at +500 according to FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, when you take a look at what happened with Caleb Williams and his career with USC, at the conclusion of his Heisman Trophy winning season, everybody knew that Caleb Williams was supposed to be taken #1 overall. And then he had a horrific season with the USC Trojans, a huge step back, with a lot of strangeness happening off of the football field as well, including people thinking that he acted too Hollywood, he acted too LA. People didn't like that he painted his nails. People didn't like that he cried once Notre Dame beat them. There are all these indictments on Caleb Williams' character. At the end of the day, he still went #1 overall. Do I think Shedeur Sanders' draft stock is tanking just because of this one commentary on a tweet? I highly doubt it. I think this has way more to do with the competing members in the quarterback class. I mean, this is one of those years where you could see the other members of the draft class make a huge jump and take a huge step forward. Jaden Daniels wasn't the favorite to be selected #2 overall 1 year before his NFL draft. It was Drake May. Ali Fashanu was supposed to go #3 overall. Marvin Harrison Jr. for the most part was supposed to go in the top 5. But I think this has to do more with the volatility of Shedeur Sanders' season. For all you know, Shedeur Sanders could once again go out there and put together a pretty solid season like he did last year, where he threw for 3,270 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, but his team just completely fails. Meanwhile, you could expect more consistency probably from Quinn Ewers, and maybe even a chance to win from Quinn Ewers and Carson Beck. The fact of the matter is, the stakes have never been higher for Shedeur Sanders. Last year, it was about getting recognition for Colorado, and Colorado was a very popular team. They were considered a team to have a lot of swagger, very exciting. What is Deion Sanders doing to Colorado? It's so interesting. Now they actually have expectations going into this season. They had a decent recruiting class with 1 5-star commit, 3 4-star commits, and 3 3-star commits. So the jury is out on whether or not this team would be able to to take a huge step forward. And I think it has more to do with the volatility of Shedeur Sanders' situation that is affecting his draft stock more than the fact that he decided to quote tweet this one tweet and kind of fanning the flames as to why people hate Colorado. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you think this is something that's being blown out of proportion, or do you think this is more of an indictment on Shedeur's character? Do you think Deion Sanders was in the wrong for the way he decided to part ways with this young player? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.